Disturbing true catfish horror stories. Melissa Torres met David Sinclair on a dating app in September 2024. His profile showed a handsome man in his 30s, successful marketing executive, passionate about travel and photography, looking for something real after a difficult divorce. His photos showed him at various international locations, always alone, always artistically composed. They connected immediately. David was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in Melissa's life as a high school teacher. They messaged daily, progressing to phone calls, then video chats. Except David's video always seemed to have technical issues. Frozen screens, audio problems, connection failures. After 3 weeks, they still hadn't had a successful video call. "I'm so sorry," David would say. "My internet out here is terrible. The rural area, but I promise we'll meet in person soon." Melissa's best friend, Cara, was skeptical. "Mel, you've been talking to this guy for almost a month and you've never actually seen him on video? That's textbook catfishing." "He sent me plenty of photos," Melissa defended. "He's just in a remote area for work. He'll be back in the city next month." But Cara did what best friends do. She ran a reverse image search on David's photos. What she found made her blood run cold. The photos were stolen from a man named Michael Chun, a photographer who died in a car accident 2 years ago. His Instagram account was still active, maintained by his family as a memorial. Melissa was devastated, but also confused. If David wasn't who he claimed to be, who was he? And why had he spent weeks building an elaborate connection with her? She confronted David via text. "I know those aren't your photos. I know the real person in those pictures died 2 years ago. Who are you really?" The response came immediately. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Can we talk? Please? I can explain everything. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 8 p.m. Come alone. I'll tell you the truth." Every rational instinct told Melissa to block the number and forget about it. But something else, curiosity, anger, the need for closure, made her agree. She told Cara where she'd be and asked to call if she didn't hear from Melissa by 9 p.m. Riverside Park at 8 p.m. in October was nearly empty, the early sunset, leaving most of the paths shadowed and deserted. Melissa waited by the fountain, her hand on her phone, ready to call for help at the first sign of danger. A woman approached from the darkness. She was in her 60s, thin and haggard, with eyes that held a desperate intensity. "Melissa, I'm David. Or rather, I've been pretending to be David." Melissa backed away. "What? Why would you?" "Please, just listen," the woman said, her voice breaking. "My name is Patricia Chun. Michael, the man in those photos, was my son. He died 2 years ago, and I've been using his photos to connect with people online. I know it's wrong. I know it's crazy. But after Michael died, I was so alone and pretending to be him, talking people as him. It made me feel like he was still alive somehow." Melissa's anger mixed with pity. "Patricia, what you're doing is cruel. You're lying to people, making them believe." "I know," Patricia interrupted, "and I'm sorry. I plan to tell you the truth. I swear." But then something changed. Something happened that made me realize I needed to meet you in person, no matter the cost. Patricia pulled out her phone and showed Melissa a series of photos. They were screenshots of their text conversations. But there was an additional element Melissa hadn't seen before, a shadowy figure visible in some of the selfies Melissa had sent, just barely visible in mirrors and reflections in windows, in the dark corners of photos. A tall, indistinct figure that appeared in multiple photos taken days apart. "What is that?" Melissa asked, her skin crawling. "I don't know," Patricia said, her hand shaking. "But it's following you. I've been studying the photos you've sent me, and I keep seeing it. in reflection, in shadows, always in the background. And Melissa, Patricia's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. I've seen this before. In photos of Michael. In the weeks before he died, there was always a shadow in his pictures. Always something in the background that shouldn't be there. And then he died in that car accident. Melissa looked at the photos more closely. The figure was real, barely visible, but definitely there, appearing in selfies she'd taken at home, at school, in her car, always in the background, always watching. This is insane, Melissa said, but her voice lacked conviction, because she'd been feeling watched lately, had been experiencing cold spots in her apartment, hearing footsteps when she was alone, seeing movement in her peripheral vision. I think whatever took my son is now following you, Patricia said. I don't know why. I don't know what it wants. But after Michael's photo started showing that shadow, he died within 3 weeks. Melissa, that first photo where I noticed a shadow in your background, that was sent to me 18 days ago. Melissa felt her legs weaken. That's not possible. Shadows in photos don't kill people. Your son died in a car accident. That's not supernatural. He was driving on a straight road in perfect weather. Patricia cut her off. His brakes failed. But the police report showed nothing wrong with the brakes. The autopsy showed elevated stress hormones, like he'd been in a state of extreme fear. And his final text to me, sent seconds before the crash, was just 2 words. It's here. Melissa's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it to find a photo, a selfie she'd taken that morning before leaving for work. But this version of the photo had been edited. The shadowy figure in the background had been brought into focus, enhanced, made clear. It wasn't a shadow. It was a person, or something that had once been a person. A figure with elongated limbs. A face that was almost human but stretched and wrong. Eyes that were too large and completely black. And it was standing directly behind mourning Melissa, its distorted hand reaching toward her shoulder, almost touching. Did you send this? Melissa demanded, showing Patricia the photo. Patricia's face went pale. No, I don't have your number. We only communicated through the dating app. Who sent that? Melissa checked the message again. Below the photo was text. Found you. Coming now. The temperature around them dropped suddenly. Both women's breath became visible in the October air, and frost began forming on the fountain beside them. From the darkness of the park, they heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. Run, Patricia whispered. Run and don't look back. But Melissa was frozen, her eyes fixed on the path where footsteps originated. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Melissa's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. It was a thing from the photo, but real, 3-dimensional, moving with a gait that was almost human but wrong in ways that made her want to scream. Patricia grabbed Melissa's arm, breaking her paralysis. My car. Now! They ran through the park, the footsteps behind them accelerating, keeping pace. Patricia's car was in the parking lot, and they threw themselves inside, Patricia fumbling with her keys. The engine started, and she peeled out just as the figure reached the parking lot. Through the rear window, Melissa watched it stand there, motionless, watching them drive away. Then it raised one elongated hand and waved, a gesture that was somehow more terrifying than any aggressive movement could have been. What the hell is that thing? Melissa gasped, her heart hammering. I don't know, Patricia said, her voice shaking as she drove. But I've been researching since Michael died. There are others, people online who reported similar experiences. A shadow that appears in their photos follows them, and then they either die or disappear. The few who survive say they were warned by strangers who'd lost someone to the same entity. So, you catfished me to warn me? Melissa said, anger and fear mixing. You couldn't have just told me directly? I tried. Patricia's voice broke. I saw the shadow in your photos, and I messaged you directly. Told you I thought you were being followed by something dangerous. You blocked me. Thought I was a crazy person. So I created the David profile, got you to trust me, waited for a chance to show you proof. Melissa remembered. 3 weeks ago, she had blocked someone who'd sent bizarre warnings about shadows and danger. She dismissed it as harassment. They drove to Patricia's house, and Melissa saw it was a shrine to Michael. Photos everywhere. His room preserved exactly as he'd left it. But Patricia led her to a different room, converted into a research center. Walls covered in printouts, photos, news articles, all connected by red string in patterns that looked disturbingly like madness. I've documented 17 cases, Patricia said. 17 people who reported a shadow in their photos, then died or vanished. The earliest case I found was from 1987, before digital photography. A woman kept a diary describing a tall, thin man she'd started seeing in family photos. She disappeared 3 weeks later. Her diary was found in her abandoned car. Melissa studied the wall. Each case showed the same progression. Shadow barely visible, shadow becoming clearer, shadow in focus, then death or disappearance. The timelines varied, but the average was 3 weeks from first appearance to fatal outcome. How do we stop it? Melissa asked. I don't know if we can, Patricia admitted. But there's one survivor, a woman in Oregon who's been documenting the entity for 5 years. She claims there's a way to transfer it, to make it follow someone else instead of you. I'm not doing that, Melissa said immediately. I'm not condemning someone else to die. Then we find another way. Together. Patricia and Melissa spent that night researching, calling the Oregon survivor, collecting every scrap of information about the entity. They learned it seemed to be attracted to isolation, to people who've been withdrawing from their social circles. It fed on loneliness, on disconnection. That's why it targeted Michael, Patricia realized. After his divorce, he becomes so isolated. And you, forgive me, but you mentioned you've been focusing on online dating because you drifted from your friends. Melissa had to admit it was true, but the solution was terrifying in its simplicity. The Oregon survivor had escaped by forcing herself to never be alone. Always surrounded by people, always connected, never isolated enough of the entity to complete its claim. For 3 weeks, Melissa never spent a moment alone. She moved in with Cara, had friends constantly around, even hired a personal assistant to ensure 24/7 human presence. Patricia stayed close, monitoring for any sign of the entity. The shadow slowly faded from Melissa's photos. By day 17, it was barely visible. By day 21, it was gone. But Patricia received a notification. A woman in their city had posted online about a strange shadow appearing in her photos. A woman who lived alone, who'd recently gone through a difficult breakup, who was isolated and vulnerable. Patricia sent a message to the woman, warning her, explaining the danger. The woman blocked her. So Patricia created a new profile, using different photos, a different personality. Started building trust, building connection, waiting for the right moment to show the woman proof of what was hunting her. Because sometimes catfishing isn't about deception for selfish reasons. Sometimes it's about saving someone who won't listen to warnings from strangers. Sometimes the real horror isn't the person behind the fake profile. It's what they're trying to protect you from.